Welcome to my channel where we question everything. Today's topic is, well, we will see. First off, I would like to apologize for having made any videos in the last couple of weeks, but that was unfortunately due to unforeseen circumstances. First, my wife got the flu, and that was about 4 days of woman down. And then I got the flu, and that was 4 days of man down. So basically, I was preoccupied with other things. And as you know, I'm living in South Africa. And South Africa has not an energy crisis, a power crisis. Because our, I can say, our utility provider cannot supply the electricity reliably as it is required from him because his machines always break down. And that has resulted between 8 and 10 hours per day of blackouts. And we had blackouts each day since, I can't even remember, November, even earlier like that. The only days we didn't have blackout was Christmas, I believe, and New Year's Eve. So every single day, on average about 6 hours a day, but in the last couple of weeks, between 8 and 10 hours. So don't worry, Europe. Nothing to fear, nothing to see. Just move on. We're in a no war, no problems, just the incompetence of the ANC's government. But that's life on Africa, the dark continent. In any case, so what did I miss in the last couple of weeks? I still read the articles. I still listen to my favorites, pro-Russian commentators and crosstalk and all this other stuff, and Larry Lonsons and Andre Mercurius and Scott Ritter, and well, it seems to me nothing has much changed. So, and I know I've got actually about, let me see, 12 Firefox windows, and each about 20 tabs open. There's a lot of stories I wanted to actually discuss, but it seems to me that this is old news. In any case, the latest I've heard is that the Ukrainian army is full of tuberculosis. And all these tuberculosis infected soldiers of Ukraine are running around Ukraine and infecting everybody else. And this is now some serious problem. It's a health problem of significant proportions. Well, where do you asked me where did I heard it? Oh, that's a fair question. Our famous Colonel McGregor. He's now telling everybody, like he's fictional, like of second front the Russians going to open from Belarus and all the other crap that he always talks about. But now his latest gung-ho shoot from the hip story is that the whole Ukrainian army is full of tuberculosis. Yes, it sounds hell of impressive, but simple Google tuberculosis, do it. You will find that if you have tuberculosis, that's a bacteria infection, it is usually dormant in your body. And it has to be activated and develop into the tuberculosis illness. And only when you have the developed illnesses, you can spread the virus of the bacteria. And it only comes out and starts activating if the body immune system cannot handle it. Then it overwhelms the body's immune system, and that's when it develops. And as you get as you have tuberculosis, you get in contact with other people. You do distribute the spores by the normal stuff like in flu viruses are those like airs and touching and coughing and all the other stuff and so on. So you're gonna inhale. Well, you, not me. I'm the ill person. Gonna inhale some tuberculosis area. But you cannot spread it because you are infected. You have the bastard in your body. But you're not ill. You haven't developed the illness. And as long as you haven't developed the illness, you cannot spread the bastard. But can tell that now for Colonel McGregor, the all-knowing Rambo of the pro-Russian commentators. So I thought I'd give you the latest news because it seems to be all my old news is it's done. And then did you also hear that Poland is going to fight the Russians on their own? They have mobilized, or they are in the process of mobilizing 30 to 40,000 men in order to enter Ukraine in the north and then fight the Russians. Where did I hear that? Oh, yeah. The Duran, the famous Duran, the narratives, their fictional stories. But just firstly, before the Russians the Polish gonna invade the north of Ukraine and fight the Russians, they first gonna give all the Leopard tanks to Ukraine. And they're begging the Germans to allow them to give their own Leopard tanks to Ukraine. And after they have given it to Ukraine, then they will invade Ukraine and fight the Russians. After they've already given Ukraine half of their T-72 tanks. They had 400, now they have 200, and then they've got these Leopard tanks, but they're going to give it away to Ukraine. And only after that, they are prepared and willing and planning to attack the Russians in Ukraine. Or is it Belarus? Ukraine, Belarus, who's they going to invade? Oh shit, I don't know anymore. And then, the latest news is, have you heard that the Russians are winning? Was the Ukrainians are winning? The Russians winning? Ukrainian winning? Anybody? Who's winning? Who's winning the war in Ukraine? Well, Peter Lavelle, McGregor, Larry Johnson, Duran. Russia's winning in Ukraine. Didn't you know that? Well, they've taken over Solidar. They were fighting in Bakhmut. And suddenly Bakhmut, I don't know what happened there, and suddenly Solidar was conquered. Just to the north of Bakhmut. And Wagner Group was attacking Bakhmut for 4 or 5 months. They finally entered Bakhmut. They finally, were about to conquer Bakhmut, and the Ukrainians are pumping in reserves, and they are getting into the meat grinder, but it seems to me only the Ukrainian forces that were killed in the meat grinder, nobody else, and it was wave after wave, and but the whole Ukrainian forces are now decimated. They don't have an army. And then somebody, I don't know, in the Wagner Group, decided now Bakhmut is not important. Let's first go to Solidar. And then we're going to attack Solidar. And shortly, boof, Soledar was captured. And then the Russian command said, well done to the Russian forces and the paratroopers and the artillery pieces and so on and so on. And thank you very much for your support, for your victory. And then Yevgeny Prigozhin, that's the head of Wagner Group, said, well, what about us? We did all the fighting. Oh, yeah. And you included in the Russian army. But Yevgeny actually said he wanted to make sure that the world knows that it was the Wagner Group that conquered Soledar. I don't know how things work like that. First you were in Bakhmut, then you're supposed to defeat the enemy there, and then suddenly you are in Soledar and conquering that city. Okay, one can do logical, it's fine. So you split up your forces into two groups. The one attacks Soledar, the other one is Bakhmut. And the guys in Soledar were the first one to achieve victory. And that's why the Wagner Group conquered Soledar in all their glory. But on the other side, the Ukrainians are sending thousands, like 10, 20,000 Ukrainian troops in it, to battle the 4,000 Wagner Group, which is split in two, so it's 2,000 in Bakhmut, 2,000 Soledar, and the Ukrainian forces are annihilated in this meat grinder. I mean, you haven't seen mincemeat like that ever before. It's like, and the flesh is peeling out like on the, And because now the Wagner Group, which is the Russian forces, have now won over Soledar, the Russians are winning. And apart from that, the Russians have now gone and sent a lot of missiles in the last couple of weeks, destroyed the Ukrainian infrastructure, electrical supply lines. They flip and destroy. Ukrainian economy is in its glory, and Ukraine is fully dependent on the outside NATO groups in support of America. And then we have my friend Peter Lavelle says, so what's it in? Why is Ukrainian doing this? Why is Ukrainian destroying its own country in order to appease America and NATO and become the soldiers and the ground forces for NATO? And why? He doesn't understand that. He can't understand that here comes America, and for the first time in the history, converts the Ukrainians to start, which are the brothers of the Russians, who have family in Russia, who love the Russians, suddenly turn them against the Russians to fight to the bitter end, the Russians. How did the Americans, he's a historian, he doesn't understand, and he has studied for how many, 30 years, Russian history. Doesn't understand that. Well, I can give an explanation basically. Let's talk about that. So, if you think about the Soviet Union, who do you think of? Russia. Where was the leadership of the Soviet Union? Moscow, or St. Petersburg, or wherever. Where was the biggest battle fought? Where was the biggest component of the Soviet Union or the Tsars before that? Russia, Moscow. So immediately, if you think back about the Soviet Union, communism, you don't think about Poland, you don't think about East Germany, you don't think about Ukraine, you don't think about Hungary and so on, you think about Russia. That's the one that comes to your mind. If you talk about the Germans, who do you think of? And do you think about Adolf Hitler? Or do you think about, what's the other guy name? Wilhelm, Kaiser Wilhelm. Well, you picture yourself there, Adolf Hitler, that's associated. That. And what happened in the Second World War? The Russians can remember very well what happened in the Second World War. That is a paramount importance for them, the great victory, or the Great War. Very important for them. And that's more than 70 years ago. So why don't they remember the Holodomor, where the Soviet Union, Russia, hungered the Ukrainians and let them starve, took all their food to support the rest of Russia and let the Ukrainians die. So the Ukrainians have to forget about the Holodomor. But the Russians must not forget Hitler and the Second World War. If you think about when Germany conquered Ukraine and had these battles in Ukraine, I mean, there were a lot of Ukrainians that joined the Germans against Russia, especially in the east, in the west. Why? Because they hated the Russians. Soviet Union's Russians. Mainly in the east, like in the Donbass. That's why we have the war in the first place. But Donbass is not the Ukraine. It's only a part of Ukraine. So it's not that difficult to stir up this. And if you also look at, go look at the, no, I don't like to call it the Baltic states because that's the other three small ones. The Warsaw countries, yeah, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Macedonia, Serbia, Ukraine, Georgia, Chechnya, Azerbaijan, Armenia. The people that live there are not as influenced and woke as the Western world. The Western population has lost their identity. They are all, the Russians, the Germans don't hate the French. The French don't hate the Belgians, or the Swiss, or the Swedish, or the Norwegians. They don't hate each other in order to kill them. But these countries in the Warsaw Pact, the Soviet Union, I don't know how to call them, they are a lot more raw yet. Ethnicity plays a big role. You can see it in the Bosnia-Herzegovina conflict. You can even see today in the Serbia-Kosovo, where you have these Albanians. They possess 96% of Kosovo, but they still want to flip and suppress 4 or 6% Serbians due to their ethnicity. There are still huge clans in Russia itself. Groups, ethnic groups, cultural groups that create this form of apartheid or a form of racism, of nationalism, of whatever principles you want to call that. They are still prepared to fight and kill each other just because they are of a different culture or a clan or ethnicity, which is in any case such blurred lines. If you live in Albania, don't think your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather came from Albania. He probably came from Armenia. Because how long far back do you want to go, really, in history? But our historian, Peter Lavelle, doesn't understand that. So how can Ukraine sacrifice itself and be the food? Well, why are the Kurdish people fighting in Syria for the Americans? They have shared a same form of shared common goal. Not 100%, but America supplies Kurds with the Kurdish people with their certain promises and money and weapons and so on. And as long as they give them, then the Kurdish and the Americans will be friends and they are willing to do the legwork. They're not doing the legwork for dying for Americans. No, they're dying it for their own purpose. It just so happened to coincide with what the Americans want. That is why Ukraine is doing what they want. What they want to get the Russians out. Well, they have destroyed their countries now, their economies and so on. Well, not destroyed, damaged. It's only the level of damage that you can argue about. It's not destroyed. It's not 100% destroyed. Partial destroyed. And therefore, they have committed themselves to this war. And as long as the West is, they are tolerating the West and NATO, and in exchange for that, they want the weapons. That is what they want. So, but again, the historian doesn't understand that, the concept. What does the West want out of it? Well, they want to fight Russia. They have their own political agenda. It's not limited to Ukraine, but it's aimed at Russia, and that is what they want to do it. And as long as there is a risk-benefit factor that's still in their favor, they will keep on doing it. And one has to ask the question, how severe is this? How important is the risk versus the reward or the benefit? That's one purpose. But then the second purpose is that Ukraine is a very rich country. It has a lot of mineral wealth, best soil in the world, etc., etc., etc. It is a physically rich country in terms of resources. So if Ukraine is destroyed by de facto the economy, what do you think will happen? What the Americans always do. They come in and strip mine at the flipping country. So the American corporate giants will come in, which they have already done, by the way. BlackRock and so on already owe a huge part of the gas pipelines and the agricultural lands and so on. Probably also a lot of those mines. So they have two benefits for that. Firstly, fighting the Russians, and secondly, Ukraine is going to collapse. That's a gone. This is just when and how. But if it's a victory or defeat, it doesn't matter. They will dissolve, and then they will be strip mined. They will be stripped of most of their valuable assets. The mines will be taken over, belong to foreign countries, companies, and etc., etc. Simple basics, but our historians doesn't know that. Our historian, which I watched again and I got so irritated, doesn't even understand fascism. What's the meaning of fascism? I mean, you hear it time and again. The right-wing sector in Ukraine are fascist. This guy's fascist. They're all fascism Nazis. Again, do yourself the favor of simply Googling fascism. Here you can find it nicely written in the Britannica dictionary, even in the Webster dictionary. It's a way of organizing a society in which a government ruled by a dictator controls the lives of the people and in which people are not allowed to disagree with the government. Do you think the Sabotya Party and the Azov Battalion and those people are subscribing to this definition of fascism? The Webster Merriam doesn't change much. Not even Wikipedia changes much on the definition. Because there's one important factor that must be. It must be authoritarian leader, a dictator. I see no evidence that any of these groups support a dictator. Yes, you can talk about Zelensky now having banned opposition parties and he's being this. It is wartime. In wartime, there is no democracy. You want to hold an election in Ukraine now with all the soldiers on the front line, stopping the wars. Hey, wait, Russia, I just want to go fill in my ballot, my voter ballot. I'll come back now, then we can shoot each other again. That's how a historian fast. Oh, wait. Did you actually hear the news? America is joining up with Japan to declare war against China. That's the latest story. Sorry, I forgot about that one. I'm a little bit behind time, man. Now, 8 days of illnesses and all this darkness. Couldn't focus really. Who told you that? Duran. Who else? The Americans who have run out of ammo, who have run out of military equipment, who is the main sponsor behind NATO. Forget about Europe and their weapon system. No, that America, that one without the weapons, that's the one that's has joined up with Japan, who has no weapons, and they're gonna attack, declare war against China. And the Duran considers it as very, very, very serious statements made by somebody with an interview at the Financial Times. Very important. You heard it first on Duran. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Since it was about 2 weeks ago, I made a video. At that stage, before I just stopped, I wanted to make a video because our military strategist, our soldier, Ryan Beletic, he made some nice drawings about how you set up defensive lines and what are fortifications and so on and so on. And he showed us a nice video of I don't know if you know what a digger loader is. It makes takes a chunk out of the ground and then makes a trench. Yeah. They use these to make the trenches. And in any case, he showed us this is a bucket one, a rotary. There's lots of buckets, and you, like in a gold in a coal mines, the open mines, coal mines. They just offload the coal onto the conveyor system. And again, this machine it looked impressive. Digging the straight type of trenches. Now we all know straight trenches are deadly. That has no purpose. So it must have been something else. But according to Brian, our military expert, that is tank barriers. Meaning, if a tank comes, there's a big trench, falls inside there, can't get over that. You know, tank traps. Tank traps, that's the right word. And then on the other side, you're going to put dragon tees, and then after that, you have some machine nests and barbed wire and okay. I don't want to go too much detail. I don't want to discuss everything that is wrong with this, but the point here is that these things are not tank traps. Why? Well, if I look at the size of the thing, it's about, say, 900 millimeters wide. So he's digging trenches, nicely 2 meters deep trenches, straight line. And it's 900 meters long. And then we had a nice announcement So the Americans are sending 50 Bradley vehicles, fighting vehicles, and the French are sending their scout vehicle, and the Germans are sending their Marauders and so on. And then just by chance they mention that the Marauder can cross tank trenches of 2.4 meters. That is what the Marauder can cross. So if you're going to make these trenches, according to Brian and this nice machine, you know, they must be nearly three times as wide, and that's only the maximum that the Marauder can cross. Anything less than 3 of these width, the Marauder can cross. But the machine is not wide enough to dig 2 or 3 meter wide trenches. Like tank. That is. So what the hell? What the hell? Oh, the Bradley, the Bradley fighting vehicle is so bad. Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if you have watched the Pentagon Wars. I actually rewatched it now. It was quite funny, but it's a very old, I think in 1979 or something, about the development of the Bradley fighting vehicle and so on. But it was a big joke in any case made about it. At the end of the day, one still has to, well, the Bradley fighting vehicle was modified. Sort of. If you don't believe in a Bradley fighting vehicle, all the French, whatever his name is, XC or whatever, X10 or what call and the Marauder, then why did the French and the Germans and the Americans build it? They had a purpose for it. It's like a Stinger missile, they had a purpose. The Javelin, they have a purpose for that. Why else would they have developed it? If it's not effective, that's something totally different. An APC, there's a reason for you have an APC. That's the reason why the Bradley are lighter than the APCs. There's a reason for all these weapons because some other general strategist has decided it needs that type of capability on a battlefield. So you cannot downgrade or reject any weapons that are sent. Like I said many times before, a T-55 is still a tank. It still has a cannon. It still can fire an HE round. It still has armor that you cannot shoot with your pea shooter through. You can throw a grenade at it, it won't matter. If you don't have an anti-tank weapon, then you're stuffed and you will die. And that is a 1960 old tank. So what is your argument? You understand the principle? If you have no protection, then a Bradley fighting vehicle will shoot you and kill you. That's it. Doesn't it have a 20mm cannon? Or does your body armor protect you against a 20mm cannon? I've seen some stuff that 20mm can do to a human being. And not in the movies. I don't understand why everybody is criticizing the weapons that are being delivered. But that's not the worst. So like Andrei Martinov always says, I'm on the record. I am on the record. Yes, me. I am on the record. Don't look at the Patriot system for what it is. It is just a front runner. For what? For more modern weapons. What more modern weapons? Challenger tanks. Challenger tanks. Britain is going to deliver 10 Challenger tanks to them. Why? Not because they are Challengers and not because they are only 10 and so on, but to motivate the Germans to send their Leopards. And why the Leopards? Because they are easier to maintain than the Abrams tanks. And the Leopards are not only in Germany and Poland and Lithuania and Hungary and I don't know wherever else. There's a lot of them available. 1 or 2 doesn't matter. Variant 1 or 2 doesn't matter. Remember, a T-55 is still a tank, still a cannon, still can kill you. So whether it's a Leopard 1 or Leopard 2 doesn't matter. And Poland is begging to give it to send it to Ukraine. And there we will hear more advanced weapons. M109s, self-propelled howitzers. I don't know what else, but it's going to come. It's going to get more and more sophisticated. And then I saw a video. I can't remember who it was. So has a clip from a Ukrainian. He was an artillery man. I said, it was I think a crepes of crab of hell, flip it. I don't know what I think it's the Polish version of the 155 self-propelled howitzer. Crepes, crab. Any guys. So he asked the Ukrainian answer, says, so how's the weapon system? He says, it's difficult to operate. He said, no, these European weapons are incredibly easy to do. It's all computerized. You just press the button and then it goes. It's much more easier than the Soviet Union weapons where you still have to press a button, turrets here and calculate here. Oh, it's much easier. So I'm not wondering why these are so worried about sending modern weapons for the Ukrainian not to be able to handle it. Yes, they can handle it. People are not dumb. They are not flipping, street cleaners. They are experienced artillery men that have shot some fires, some ammunition, some rounds, and so they know how artillery works. And just a little bit more modern with the computers. What's the big difference? It's quick to learn. Oh, but what about the maintenance? Oh, yes. Why are you concerned about the maintenance? According to our military specialist, O'Brien, all the weapons have to be sent to Poland in any case for repair. You know, when a 777 breaks, what do? Do they fix it there? No, they send it all the way to Pradas. Why? Why do you think is that happening? Because all the Polish mechanics are sitting in Poland to repair it. And the Americans, if they have to repair the Abrams tank, they will also sit in Poland and all the broken stuff will be sent there. They cannot send their mechanics into Ukraine and be killed. No, they are outside Ukraine. And that's why these weapon systems are sent there, because it is not being repaired by Ukrainian specialists, by NATO maintenance specialists. But then who thought of that in any case? So what's next on the line? Oh yeah, F-16s. Yes. No. F-16 is not going to be sent. Why not? Well, they're not needed. Ukraine has an unlimited air force. It's like in the movies, you know. Guns that don't run out of bullets. Pew, 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 pew. Doesn't matter how long the magazine. How can you say things like that? Well, I've always referred to what? The Russian military daily reports. How many have they shot down now? Oh, 280 or, I don't know. 280 fighters. And every second day they shoot another S-25, Su-25 or MiG-19 down. It just seems to me that Ukrainians have an enormous aviation supply, aircraft supply. Just doesn't stop. So, who's winning? Russians are winning. Oh, the Ukrainians are winning. Oh, the Russians are winning. No, nobody is winning. Go look at the map. There's no movement on the map. Nothing is happening. There's a little bit of skirmishes. Solidar and Bakhmut are battle victories. And according to all my colleagues and friends, that doesn't really matter. Because the Russians are not interested in occupying ground. Isn't that so? Yeah, thought so. But I haven't told you the latest news. According to our friend Scott Rutte, we are going to have an Armageddon. We're going to have a thermonuclear war. That's it. Guaranteed. Scout's honor. That is what he told me. So you guys better prepare yourself. Go learn that when the siren goes off, you get under your table. Head first. Bomb can stick out. And you better start practicing now. What else done here? Yeah, like I said, Taiwan's out of the picture. Japan is the answer. Oh yeah. Have you heard the European economy is crashing? Yes, they have no energy. But according to statistics and the guys that actually keep the numbers, Europe has imported LNG equivalent to what they get on a yearly basis from the Russians. And gas prices are falling. And the European stock market is rising. But the German economy is migrating to America, also to China. America, China, doesn't matter. The share prices are increasing. So the investors must know something that we don't know. Yeah, and the World Bank and the IMF and the Reserve Bank, and they're all predicting that the world growth is now going to be 0.8%. But inflation is going to be tamed. It's going to come down. Still going to get worse. No, it's going to get better. The money says it's going to get better. Bitcoin climbed to $21,000. It was at 15. Oh, I forgot about this. You know about that oil cap that the West has done on Earth? Yesterday I found out actually Russia was selling oil long time already below $60. Actually at $57 and $54 a barrel for Ural oil. So I wonder why did the West put the $60 cap on it? Yeah, I don't know. I just wish I can convince our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, to go and buy this cheap Russian oil for South Africa. Oh, yeah, he's already buying it. His cronies is buying it at these cheap prices and then selling it at these enormous prices back to South Africa. And the ingeniousness of the African people. They buy it cheap due to their political contacts and then they sell it for expensive, maximum profit to the population. Well, that is why we are in a state as we are, and we have between 8 and 10 hours of blackouts, and our chief, who really tried to get this company right, resigned, probably because he told them, go buy the cheap Russian diesel so that I can fire these turbines up so that Africa can have electricity. And then the president said, no, we cannot buy the cheap diesel. My friend, Moya Kayona, now has to buy the diesel, the cheap diesel from Russia, and then sell it to you at market price. And then there's the writer probably said, I can't take this anymore. I just can't. I can only take the horse to the water, but I cannot make him drink, and you don't want to drink. Oh, well, was it a good recovery for the last lack of 2 weeks of videos? I hope so. I believe you are up to date now. And I will make now regular videos again. So, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done it. Tell your friends, spread the word. I'm back. And until next time, cheers.